This video is about the United States relationship with Kim Jong-un. So I'm going to tell you from memory what I remember happening. He inherited all of his country's problems. He's a relatively young guy. He might have been like in his low 30s when he came to power. He's not such a bad guy. You know, I watched a lot of videos and he was doing things like going to water parks and things like that. His father would go to all the factories, but he said he wanted to have a new Korea, and he did a lot of cool things for Korea, even though obviously most Koreans would never be able to go to those places like Disneyland. How many people actually get to go there, or it's a once-in-a-lifetime thing? So when he came to power, I remember a few months later, he said he wanted peace with the United States, and Barack Obama was president, and Barack Obama said no, he wasn't interested. And as you can see here, it says the U.S. Rejected North Korea peace talks. I don't know when it happened, but this news story was 2016, but I also know that it happened like in 2011. So I disagree with treating North Korea like that. I don't think we have ambassadors or an embassy with North Korea. And, you know, these people, they're people too, just like you and me. North Koreans, almost every country in the world loves the United States. And there's been a lot of negative propaganda against Kim Jong-un and North Korea. And some of it is true, but a lot of it you just should ignore. You know, a lot of it is the government just causing trouble. You know, we should have peace with other nations. We shouldn't be finding reasons to argue and start wars and stuff. So I'm going to tell you a quick story. I had a friend, this was in the 1990s. There was a famine in North Korea, and the United States gave North Korea, I don't remember how much money it was, maybe it was $86 million. And a friend of mine in Japan called me up, and he asked me if I could help him buy 1,000 luxury cars, and they had to cost $10,000 each. He said like BMWs, Mercedes, Lexus, and he said it was for the North Korean government. And he told me that the value of the deal was equal to the amount of money that the United States just announced that they were giving to North Korea. And I did some research, and I said, you know, for $10,000, it's hard to find luxury cars unless it was like from the early 80s. I said, you really got to kick it up to 15 or 20,000. And he was going to give me $1,000 per car. But the cars were not going to go directly. I don't know what would happen with the cars, but he was in Japan. He had a Japanese business, and it never went further than that. I just told him, you know, you won't be able to get them at that price. So there's an organization in South Korea, I don't know what it's called, that all they do is try to initiate peace with North Korea. Like they do radio broadcasts and letter writing, and it's all about how they want to reunite. And Kim Jong-un, he believes that North Korea and South Korea should be reunited. And another thing that happened is when Trump was running for president, I wrote him a letter, and I wrote a letter to some other people. I wrote it to Rand Paul, because Rand Paul is a very level-headed guy with this type of thing. And I said to Trump, I said, we want peace with North Korea. This is, and you know, they're living in an armistice. It's got to be the easiest peace treaty ever. You know what I mean? And I wrote down how to bring peace with North Korea. I put my opinion down. And then about a week or two later, Trump was being interviewed on the radio, and someone asked him, would you meet with Kim Jong-un? And he said, yeah, sure, I'd meet with him. And that was the first time I heard anybody talk about it. And at some point I wrote another letter to Trump, and I made a second request. I said, please meet with Kim Jong-un. You know, that's what a leader does. You know, you're the leader of our country. They're human beings just like we are. They're no different than we are. They're just people. And they're not a threat to us. You know, there's been a lot of propaganda. It's going to be an easy deal to negotiate, and it's up to the Koreans to ultimately decide on peace. The United States should just facilitate that. And then, you know, there was something about like Trump's Secretary of State who said, Tillerson, who said it would never happen. And then a short time thereafter, Trump announced that they were meeting. And obviously nothing came out of it. I don't like the way Trump was talking after they met. He didn't sound super positive. He was saying some good things, but he was also saying negative things like Kim Jong Un has to do this and has to do that, or they're not serious or whatever, or they have to get serious. He was saying rhetoric. Um, but my opinion is this is like the easiest peace treaty ever. And I'm going to tell you, how do you reunite two countries? I already thought about how you do this. Their main concern is going to be their form of government and national security. So what you do is you take every agency, which is going to be education, protect environment, energy, the military, police, because police are probably going to be national, not local in Korea. And then you're going to take social welfare, you're going to take the intelligence services, and you form unified agencies. But it has to work on, if you have a federal government in Korea, it's going to have to be on consensus, which means there's going to have to be one representative from each country that they both agree to, that they're willing to work with, which means that if you don't like the other country's representative, you can ask them to change. And they'd have to work on consensus, and they would work out the deal, and the North and the South would separately ratify them, and they would keep their form of government. But once they unify, once they start the process of unifying, eventually they will completely unify, and there will be one country. You mix the military together, you have the troops mixed together in the camps, in the barracks, in the bases, and they train together, and you unify. The education's the only thing difficult about it is the history, and if you gotta have separate history, then just do separate history. If it's too difficult to teach both sides' opinions of Korean history, then just teach it separately and leave it at that. And unify everything else from the least impact on national security, such as sports and arts, to whatever has the most impact on national security. And if they want to keep their private intelligence services, and let them keep a portion of it private, but unify everything else, like all the international intelligence. And then you'll have a unified country. You open the borders, you let people go back and forth, you let them start businesses and emigrate between the countries. And the people from the South who are entrepreneurial are all going to go to the North for the cheap labor. And the people that are in the North that are looking for higher wages are all going to go to the South. And it's a win-win situation. And I really believe in this. And I don't like it when people criticize Kim Jong-un. They call him a dictator, or they say a hermit country. Those are offensive terms. And, there's a lot of people who claim that you shouldn't say offensive words, but they call him a hermit country. They call it a hermit country, and they call him a dictator, which obviously he is. But still, they don't say it in a loving way. They talk about him in an offensive way, even though they claim that they're against using offensive language. So that's my opinion. If you have any questions or comments, please post below.